Yo, what is up, you guys? So, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of my kick making process. So, some of you guys have asked me how I make kicks and things like that, and how I made my kick pack from a few months ago. Basically, this is a session where I made all my kicks. So, it's kind of a complicated session, but the reason why I like to have a whole session for this is because I like to give myself a lot of space to just make kicks. So, I really need an empty project so I can just start getting crazy with this. And then there's a ton of routing and my favorite types of plugins for kick making and things like that. But today I'm going to focus on not so much my old kick making process, but like something you guys have kind of requested. So kind of the distorted kick. So the distorted kick is not something I'm a particularly big fan of, but I do like kicks with a little bit of distortion applied. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm the person to ask, but basically from what I know and the way I've always done those types of kicks is the best way to do it is start with an 808 and distort that and then layer in other things and it starts to sound like a kick, like a nice kick. So I'm not going to show the way that other people do it that really, in my opinion, sounds like shit and is really kind of stupid, and it's kind of like a trend that is quickly going away. So I don't think anyone's going to be interested in making those kind of old big room type kicks, not for long anyway. So I kind of hope it's going away. It's those kind of things are a little bit annoying to me. I like my kicks to be distorted but not overly distorted. So something like this is kind of what I'm talking about. Sorry if it's a little quiet. These are just uncompressed kicks so far, and here's another one I made. So basically I'm going to show you guys how to make kicks like that. So it's kind of the same process as you would making hardstyle kicks, which in my opinion, I like hardstyle kicks. Those are examples of good distorted kicks because it's, hardstyle's been around for a long time, and I really just love those kicks. And I think as far as any kick making process goes, once you know how to make hardstyle kicks, you can basically make any kind of kick. So if you're trying to really master your kick making skills, learn how to make hardstyle, basically. So, no, I can't say everyone does it the same in hardstyle or when you make a distorted kick, but most of the times you want to start off with a 808. And basically, common plugins to use are things like Homicide, because it's a multi-band distortion plugin, so you can get really precise and maintain bass by using smart settings, and a little bit sausage founder because it never hurts to saturate something. And then I like to have this free plugin. It's on pluginboutique.com. You'll find it in the analyzers probably. And what I like about this is that it has presets like low frequency inspection, and then you can zoom in on the spectrum, which is something I really like. And when you click around, you can see that it's telling me notes according to hertz and things like that. And, so I really do like this. This is like my favorite one. I don't use other analyzers. This is the one I go to. So if we solo this 808, let's turn off the Homicide and all that stuff. The sausage fat now. Let's just listen to an 808 by itself. We can see, hold on, let's try to freeze it real quick. Where is the freeze button? I should know. Okay, hold. So, yeah, you can see I can hold it, which is like the same as freeze and other types of plugins like this. And you can see the top peak is the one that's going to indicate what key this kick is in. So I tune all my kicks. I tune everything actually that goes into anything that I do. It's very easy for me to tune kicks because at this point I can see where the highest peak is at. And, sometimes in other analyzers it's just so hard to tell because you don't have enough. You just can't see it clearly enough. And here you can just zoom in on that motherfucker. So there's no debate there what key this is in. And typically if I want this to be in a F or a G, then I start transposing. You can't obviously transpose it too much because then it starts to lose its natural characteristics. So here in Ableton, if you just double click on a sample, you have the transposition knob here, so you can just bring it down a step. So if I wanted to tune this from F to a G, I might just go back down to 0, maybe a little further, so we don't get it sharp. And now if we go back to span, I don't know why I called it spam. We can see that it's kind of going between G and G sharp. Maybe if I bring it back down to 0, you can see it's changing a little bit. It's a little bit in the sharp side. Maybe if we add some sense to it, let's try 25. Yeah, now it's playing around the G1 a little bit more naturally, so let's just bring it back down to an F. So yeah, we're just gonna make an F in this example. So that's kind of how I tune kicks. If you want to get a little bit more detailed, you can also use things like contact, which is really good for repitching kicks and things like that. But with 808s, you can simply just use what I was doing, which is basically just Ableton's audio warping stuff. So now you can just start applying, once you've tuned it to whatever key you want, you can start applying the distortion. So obviously you want to use a really good distortion plugin to make distorted type kicks. So I don't know why people think they're so hard to make. They're really very simple to make. But you do need to take a long time to make a really great one. So maybe that's the whole thing behind it. People know how to make it, but just are too lazy to figure out how to make a great one. So I would like to say that there's like one and done settings for kicks, and I wish there were settings I use all the time to achieve it. But every time I use Homicide and I start distorting kicks, I always apply different settings. So there's really no settings I could give you that might apply to the 808 samples you find or whatever. But in this case, I could show you what I used. So I used hollowed for my first band, which was set around 60 Hertz. I usually like to go anywhere from 60 to 120 for the lowest band. Second band, I like to keep it a little bit low and low mid, so around 600 Hertz. And then the third band goes just all the way up. So I'm just basically using these three. So if I had this around 5K, then it would just be everything between 6 to 3 or whatever I set it to, and then the last band would be everything else. So in this case, I'm just using it as a 3 band, so I'm not even using this part right here. So now I prefer using a little bit of the a little bit more sharpness on the shape, so that way it's not too fat and tubby. So I left it on 30% sharp, body's up 100%, gain is around 17 dB. Again, this is hollowed in the standard, so I prefer the standard ones more than I prefer odd or triple X, just because sometimes those are a little bit phasey and weird. So I try to stick with the standard. And then a big part of this, when you distort or compress something like that's very low end, you're killing some of that. You're killing a lot of bass, because if you don't know this, you can think of bass as sine waves that are really just long, and you can think of high frequencies as sine waves that are really fast and really close together. So it looks like once you go really high up into high frequencies, it looks more like noise. And if you go really low into like 30 Hertz, it just looks like a huge sine wave, like a big like hill going into another upside down hill. So the more you distort something and the more you compress stuff, you're squashing the waves down, so it's becoming a little bit higher pitch. So that's why you don't want to overdo distortion. So that's why my favorite thing about Homicide is that you can apply a little bit of dry wet. So basically, a wet knob to the distortion you're applying. So if we listen to this, let's slow this. I set it to around 40-60. So if we put it on dry, that's what it sounded like before. And if we bring it up all the way to wet, we've killed that low end. So see how, try to listen to the low end. Notice how it's just completely gone when it's 100% distorted. Yeah, that's just not good for kicks. We need our kicks to have bass, so that's definitely why you want to find a nice balance between distortion and the original dry version. So I think I had mine around 40-60. So there's just enough bass in there left so that's usable. And yeah, if you can't hear that, it's probably because you're on small speakers or laptop speakers, phone or whatever. You really have to hear this on monitors that can replicate low end well. So let's go to the next band. So again, I applied the dry wet around 50% or so. So 50% dry, 50% wet. I applied the Smart E. For this one, the gain's around 26. The bodies are all the way up, and this is on the fat side of 16. So now let's go to the third band. So what I like to achieve with the third band, so the mid, I always kind of try to go for something more tonal. So if we listen to that, let's just go back to mid real quick. I kind of like it to sound a little bit like this. That's what the original sound like. Now let's go 100% distortion. That is usable, but I kind of just wanted to have it be a mixture of both. And so what I like to achieve with the high band is basically to have it more clicky. So some good waves for that, or some of the good ones I like to use, is like Stronger, Hollowed, this one, as well as Hop and Bounce. So actually I think the best one for this is probably right down here. Alright, so let's go with that one. You hear how clicky that is? Like if we take off, if we throw it back to dry. I mean, it already has a nice click in there. But with this distortion, it sounds a little bit sharper and a little bit nicer. So maybe we bring up the sharpness. I'm already changing my settings. There we go. There we go. So I really like it like that. I really like it to have a nice click on the top. That's nice. By the way, I think I got this from just Ableton. So if you don't know where to get 808 kicks, you can always just search your sample folder in Ableton. And so I think I use this one. And other places to look would be like Battery 4 or 3, or, you know, some sort of library of samples that has 808s. So really try to find some good 808s. I'm just using this one because, well, everyone probably is going to have this one if you're in Ableton. So now let's just add a little bit saturation, so sausage fattener. So in this case, I kept my settings very simple. So just add a little bit of color, a little bit of fatness, so like 12% on color and fatness. But sometimes I like to bring the gain down. I just accidentally clicked it up, so I'm just putting it back to where I had it. Sometimes I like to bring the gain to like around -15, so that way I can apply a lot of saturation. And it makes it a lot warmer. But, you know, let's just, again, this is kind of something you do by ear. So the next thing I like to do is, once I have this, I kind of like to layer in bottle attacks. So, or attacks. So you can make attacks inside of Kick, which is a nice, good kick maker. So this is by Sonic Academy. It's a really good one. I have the Nicky Romero edition, or Bassism. So you can also make whole kicks in either the plugins I just showed, but I prefer recording my attacks and layering those in because it feels way more natural, and it actually makes the kick sound a lot more real. So yeah, I might find the video. I'll link it down below in the description. I have a video on how I make my bottle attacks. So if you want to know what that is, in a shorthand, is basically I take like gallons of water that are almost empty, or bottles, or glass bottles, or beer bottles, or whatever, and I basically, with the tops off, I just cup it with my hand, so I kind of just smack it on the top, and it makes this nice resonant sound. So I record that, and when you layer that into kicks, it sounds really natural. So this is an example of what that sounds like. So that sounds really boring by itself, but again, it's just meant to be an attack transient. As far as I'm concerned, like on other ones I've recorded, like I only care about this part of it. All this I don't care about. But in this case, this one has like a nice little fade, so, or a nice release to it. So if I layer that in, so let's play the 808 by itself. Let's make sure nothing else is playing as well. So if I just play the 808 by itself, the distorted one, layer this in, you can see how that feels more like a real kick. It actually feels like there's like a kick pedal hitting a bass head. I used to be a drummer, so for like 10 or not 10 years, like 7 years. So for me, this is like the closest way I found to replicating that through synthesis and minimal recording. So, you know, if I still had drums and drum microphones, I would totally be recording kick drums, but it wouldn't really work for dance music genres. But yeah, I find that this is very natural sounding, at least from the attack part of it. So once I have that, I have other options. Sometimes I'll layer in some more sub if I need it. So I have layers for that kind of stuff and specific chains and things like that. But I think for now, let's just keep it very simple. Let's just make a very simple kick. So let's just clear this. So we're going to record the 808 and the kick, the attack transient together. So we're going to just, you can just add another audio track and then go to here and go to resampling. So resampling is just going to record everything that's playing. So we're just going to press that, record it, and then we'll just press, once we're done recording, we'll just press Command Z so that we just have just one take of the recording. So let's loop that, let's solo this, and let's hear it. So it's all good. So because this is my session and I've been, you know, every few weeks I come back to the session and make some more kicks. You know, the types of plugins I use changes, but right now what I'm currently using to shape the kicks is Volume Shaper, which I just got from Splice for free because I gave out a bunch of links, invite links, which there might be more in the description if you're interested. And I like to use dynamic tube. So I'll zoom into my dynamic tube settings. There's really nothing I can say about it. I just fool around with it until I hear something that's better than the original. So if I take it out, add it back in, it's just shaping it and applying a little bit of tube, which is kind of what I like. So the only thing I would recommend is really play around with these envelopes here. So I like this B envelope because it really makes it feel more dynamic. And then obviously play around with this to add more tube, and you know, just do it to however you like. So if you don't have Volume Shaper and you want to shape your kicks, oh fuck, whoopsie, I forgot to close it down a certain way, then what you can do is just press Command Option F, and that will bring up your fades, and then you can just fade it out like that. So this is going to sound a lot better already. That sounds a lot better than this. Now, to some newer producers, they might think, oh, well, that kick is so cool, it's so long and things like that. But what you learn from experience, from, you know, mixing and things like that, short kicks are really the best. The reason being is they're the easiest to mix, and they leave a lot of room for like bass and heavy bass to come in. So having long kicks is kind of, if you had to think of it from technical side only, long kicks are just the worst to use. They're just terrible. So I would recommend always kind of fading your kicks out. If they're kind of long like this, just fade it out like halfway into a bar. So right here, this is just, a beat. So right here, this is like one beat. So, you know, let me try to zoom out so it just looks like one beat. So there, that's just one beat right there. So I just try to have it fade out at least halfway in between the beat. Sometimes I really just like it to be like something like that. But that's kind of like more dubstep genres already, where you have a kick that's really just attack and no substance after. So this is kind of ideal. So that's kind of what I prefer. And then at this point, I usually check the tuning of it again, just to make sure it's still in the original keys. Sometimes when you apply distortion, things like that, it gets a little bit of out of tune, and you might have to just retune it. So let's zoom in on this motherfucker, and let's see what we got. So yeah, it's a little bit higher now. Okay, I was looking at it over here. So yeah, so it's still in the key of F. So that's kind of how I make kicks. So yeah, that's how you do with an 808 sample. I think I've done videos before where I made the kick with bassism, and then I started distorting it from there. So you can see I have, plugins I like to use for that. And, Transient Master, like, this is a good plugin. So transient plugins are also good when you're making kicks. And then I have, like, homicide switchers, so I'll have, like, two homicide settings, and then I'll be switching back and forth between them. So basically I'll try an A side and a B side, so they're not playing at the same time. And then, things like that. There's tons of good free plugins I could recommend. So something like this, it's a real-time, it shows you your waveform in real time. Really useful. So that tells me and informs me of a lot of things. So I don't know if that's a PC plugin as well. I have an AU version of that plugin, but it's called it's made by Bram and Scene, and it's called the Smart Electronics, and it's the Mesoscope. So yeah, I would recommend that plugin. Hopefully you guys like this video. If you guys want more kick stuff, let me know.